Marci, I'll start because I have a few questions. So first of all, just one of the things that we know or read a lot about with hypothalamic obesity is that diet and exercise is not an intervention. But you have proven that to not be true in all cases. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I read the same thing. And, even with my nutrition degree, for the first 6 years after my son developed hypothalamic obesity, we really felt like, and we bought into that mentality that there was just, no solution. There was no medication. There was no diet, and the exercise and diet were going to be useless to help this condition. And so I think that sort of just took away our drive to even try. And it wasn't until troubleshooting several different, eating plans and systems that we finally figured out a system where, in my son's case, he did respond and he was able to lose about 40 pounds. He was 9 years old at the time. So, our neurosurgeon told us that there's a spectrum of hypothalamic obesity. So, there's going to be, everybody with this diagnosis is going to fall somewhere on that spectrum. And there's going to be people all the way over, to one end of the spectrum where diet and exercise may only be able to slow their weight gain, but it's not going to stop it. And then you're going to have people all the way on the other end of the spectrum where, diet and exercise is going to help them get to, a healthier or even a near normal body mass index or weight. And then there's going to be people that fall everywhere in between. And I really think, I suspect it has to do with how much damage was done to the hypothalamus, either, depending on how large the tumor got before it was diagnosed and depending on treatment. So you really don't know until you try.
Yeah. I have a question from Caroline. How do I know if I have HO? Which is a good question because I wonder that often with my own son. So do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And in fact, I wasn't even sure my son had it till I noticed it on the printout we got from the one of the doctor's visits. It was just listed under one of his diagnoses. I think that if you have had some sort of damage, you have to have some sort of damage to your hypothalamus, either from a brain tumor or, some sort of trauma. There are certain genetic disorders such as Prader-Willi syndrome that can develop hypothalamic obesity as well. So you have to have, sort of one of those diagnoses, some sort of pituitary tumor or one of these genetic syndromes or trauma. And then with that, you are seeing rapid weight gain that, and you may or may not feel hungry. There are some people with HO that don't even feel hungry and they're not even eating that much and they gain, 20, 30 pounds. And then there are other people that suddenly find themselves, they're starving all the time. And so you can have hypothalamic obesity either with or without the hunger. And if you want to know for sure, you really need to ask your doctor. Mm-hmm. But, if you've had one of these diagnoses or some sort of brain trauma and you have this just weight gain that is sort of uncontrollable and uncontrollable hunger or without the hunger, it's safe to assume that you probably have it.
Mm-hmm. Patricia has a question, and I just do want to disclaimer this by saying we are not medical professionals. We're moms Marci is a registered dietitian, so she has that background, and we are both moms who have been in the trenches with our children. But it's a good question. Do you know if the damage is caused by the brain tumor itself or if it is caused by the surgery? I will tell you from personal experience that in my son's case, it was a surgical. He had no signs prior to surgery, so it was surgical damage. But I know her question is it for either or both? And I think that it can really be, everyone has a different story when it comes to that, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, I think that it can be caused by the tumor and it can be caused by the treatment. So it doesn't matter if it's surgery or radiation or if you're just watching and waiting and using some type of, chemotherapy. And we're talking about craniopharyngioma, a specific type of brain tumor. Here, I know there may be people in this group that maybe, have a different cause for their HO. So yeah, is it considered a traumatic brain injury? Well, I think brain surgery is considered a
Yeah.
traumatic brain injury. I think, I would imagine.
Yeah, when it comes to, I think with parents, when you're have a child, especially in school, it's considered an acquired TBI when your child's had surgery to remove the tumor. So,
it can cause weight gain, but doesn't cause HO.
Trisha says she had seen tumor, but at 41. Okay, so yeah, TBI is what we consider it when it comes to explaining it to the government.
What?
As far as like our caseworker at the health department and school and that kind of thing, consider it an acquired TBI. William Smith's question is, I'm a personal trainer working with an adult. Any recommendations for training do's and don'ts? That's a good one.
Okay, so let's be more specific. So you are a personal trainer and you're working with an adult that has hypothalamic obesity. Is that correct?
And William, you can actually talk if your mic's on.
Well, I don't know if I have a mic.
Yeah, we hear you.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So, okay, what was your question again? I'm sorry, back to me.
Yes. So you're a trainer working with an adult that has hypothalamic obesity? I just want to make sure I understand correctly.
That is correct.
Okay. So you do not have hypothalamic obesity.
No, I do not.
As far as do's and don'ts, I mean, they need to be, obviously if they're recently out of surgery, they need to be cleared by the doctor that it's okay for them to exercise. I don't know that there's any do's and don'ts. I know that with my son, what I felt was the most effective was working on building lean body mass because, these people with hypothalamic obesity, their metabolism is very, very, very low. Much lower than it was before they had hypothalamic obesity. So, from what I understand and from what I learned, and you can certainly correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not a trainer, that building lean body mass or muscle is how you increase metabolism because muscle is burning calories at rest. So the more muscle you have, the higher your metabolism is. So, that's where I would put, a good amount of time and effort into. I think interval training is good and, doing a little bit of cardio.
Okay, we're doing all the above.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't you say though, Marci, that nutrition is probably a big factor as well?
Well, yeah. I mean, the two, you to see the best results, I mean, you're going to need to see both. You're going to need to, follow a lower carbohydrate diet where you're not eating a lot of or no processed foods, very little sugar, and, sort of watching how much carbohydrate you eat every day, focusing on nature-made foods that were not made in a factory, but exercise too. I mean, I think, you'll get more bang for your buck when you're doing both.
Okay. So one of the questions that I have is, how many carbs should I eat? Oh, and we have one in for, okay. The trainers I've worked with tend to push too hard or try to progress too fast, making sure they're not pushing too far past their limits too quickly. Yeah, because a lot of times you have somebody whose health is compromised in other ways.
Well, and also, I can just say from personal experience, I mean, I think a good trainer should be checking in with you to make sure that you're okay. I remember once I offered, this trainer, we bartered. I gave her nutrition advice and she trained me for like one appointment. And I guess she thought I looked fit and maybe just assumed that, you know, I could handle a lot of cardio, and I can't. And I remember I was shaking. My blood sugar was so low, and I felt embarrassed. I didn't want to tell her. And then I finally said, I have to sit down. I feel dizzy, because she was pushing me too hard. So, you know, as the client, it's important to speak up and not.
Do you feel like art pushes you too hard?
That we need to slow down. You know, this
She
is a little bit
pushes
too
too
much
hard?
right now.
Too hard now.
Okay, so Marci, how many carbs should I eat?
So it depends on, everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
I have sort of come up with sort of an average, you know, the HO recommended amount of carbohydrate. Again, it depends where you fall on that spectrum. You know, my son can eat around 100 grams of carbohydrate a day. And he can stay pretty healthy as long as he's exercising, doing that. Now, when he stops exercising, he does gain weight if we don't cut those carbs back even more. So, you know, it can really be anywhere between, you know, 30 to 120 grams a day. But you need to pick something that you're going to stick with.
Mm-hmm.
If it's too low and you're, you know, not feeling well, then bump it up a little bit. You know, you just kind of have to experiment and see what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about keto? What's your thoughts on that?
Keto is very hard. You know, keto, I don't really know what people mean when they say keto, because they could mean a lot of different things. You know, there's the ketogenic diet, which was originally something that nutritionists and doctors came up with to control seizures. And that is a very high fat diet that's actually pretty low in protein. So really, to be on a true ketogenic diet, I mean, you're mostly eating cream and fat, and a couple of non-starchy vegetables, maybe a few berries, but you're mostly eating fat. It's not very palatable. Now what's kind of trendy, people say keto. I mean, you know, I don't know what they mean. You know, some of them mean, well, we just kind of, you know, don't eat anything processed. Or, you know, some of them might mean, well, we're actually staying under 30 grams of carbohydrate a day, and we're measuring our urine ketones to see that we're making ketones. Again, I think if, you know, I think it's a last resort. I think it's okay if you are working with your doctor or a dietitian who understands it. I think it's important to understand that if you have diabetes insipidus, that it can be tricky to do keto, because you do start to waste salt and water and potassium. So particularly if you have diabetes insipidus and you don't have a thirst mechanism, keto can be a little bit dangerous. So you need to be under the supervision of a doctor. So I would always try to do sort of a lower carb, moderate carb, see if that works. And if that doesn't work and you want to try keto, that's fine. But many people find that it's just too hard and they can't stick with it.
Patricia's question is regarding LDN and oxytocin. What is LDN?
Low dose naltrexone.
Okay. Can you please talk about how this combination is working well for your children? What kind of doctor did you see that prescribed the oxytocin for you? So I know you have an answer for that combination. I have an answer for oxytocin only, so you go ahead.
Yeah, so we, our endocrinologist would not prescribe it.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up seeing a functional and integrative medicine doctor. Most of these functional and integrative medicine doctors do not take insurance. There may be some, but most likely they don't. And they just have a different approach. You know, they are willing to do things that don't have quite as much research behind it. And yeah, they're just a little bit looser. I think they're more willing to bring in new ideas and, more willing to see like, okay, if we don't do something, your health is going to continue to decline. So I'd rather do something than nothing. So that's what we did. She's also the one that prescribed the low dose naltrexone. So first we started oxytocin, and we started 5 units. We tried to do it a couple times a week, didn't see much progress. Then we started doing it every day. And, it wasn't life-changing, but it took the edge off the hunger. There was definitely a difference, and definitely enough of a difference to make it worth continuing to use it. There may be a better dose that would work even better, and I don't know, because we kind of stopped at 5 units a day. But I did that for several years, and then more recently we added the low dose naltrexone, which was 8 milligrams a day. And then that's where I really saw a bigger difference, where, as long as I'm not keeping processed food in the house, we've been able to keep the refrigerator. We haven't been locking it at night. We haven't been locking it during the day. And it just, the food focus went down even more. So it seems like they, maybe they work synergistically, where they work together to produce a greater result in terms of, decreasing hunger and food preoccupation.
Mm-hmm. My son's been on oxytocin. We're about 5 IUs per day. I have not seen a huge difference. He was prescribed by his pediatrician, who also has a private practice and can freely prescribe at his discretion. So we have looked at the research together and decided it would be worth a shot. We pay out of pocket for it. We purchase ours from, I think it's Endeavor. Is that the right? Empower Pharmacy.
It's in Houston.
Yeah. And so, but the low dose, the LDN, is something that I've put on my son's pediatrician's radar as a possible next step. So hopefully that answers that question. I know oxytocin is kind of a hot issue and is currently being studied as a treatment for HO at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. The study is under Dr. Shana McCormack. She's very dedicated to the cause, and so we've been all watching very closely, and I talk with her firsthand on a regular basis. So we're hoping that, that study will find the right kind of oxytocin and the right dosage and help us find a way for that to be effective. Patricia says she was able to get the LDN from my primary, but can't get the oxytocin. The pharmacist said, if I get to the correct dose, I may not need it. So we are titrating LDN and are only at 2 milligrams at night. I switched to the 2 milligrams and saw a marked increase in energy this week. That's great news.
Great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's wonderful.
And this is what's so important about this, is sharing information, because without us being able to share information, when I first discovered my son might have HO, at that time, nobody really had much to offer on the subject. And now it's becoming more and more, people are talking about it more, it's getting shared more. So I see more medical practitioners interested in it. So that's a good sign. So Marci, another question is, should I count total carbs or net carbs?
So I actually posted a blog post about this a couple of weeks ago. As always, you can do what you want to do, and you can try it both ways and see what works better. I find the whole net carb approach kind of leads to eating more carbohydrate than is healthy for you to be eating. And, the whole net carb thing is really something that really should only be used for somebody that has type 1 diabetes who's taking insulin. I mean, that's the purpose of that. So I would recommend counting total carbohydrate. I think it's you'll see better results that way.
Great. I don't see any questions coming in from attendees, so I'll ask another one that I have. This is a good one. Are stevia sweetened beverages okay? What can I drink besides water?
Oh yeah, I get that one a lot. I'm not whatever works for you. In my house, we drink only water and tea. We really don't drink anything else. So that would be, I think, the best way to go. Herbal tea, putting cucumbers in your water, even strawberries, anything you like to flavor it. If you want to have one stevia sweetened beverage a day, 8 ounces, I don't think it's a big deal. What I wouldn't suggest is, that's your main beverage and that's what you're drinking. And, I don't want to see people drinking 2 liters of stevia sweetened beverages a day. I think that, we don't really know with stevia. We don't really know if it has an effect on appetite. We know that artificially sweetened foods and beverages like, sucralose, aspartame, those types of things like Splenda and Equal, those end up making you more hungry. And they think it might even be triggering insulin secretion, which is the last thing you want, because that just makes you more hungry and gain more weight. So, yeah.
Challenging for people with kids with DI and no thirst mechanism.
Well, then you have to do what you have to do to get them to drink, and that's a really good point. And I was thinking about that actually. I get a lot of questions about, my son, the diet and the way of eating that I talk about in my book is, it's not real picky eater friendly. If you have a child or even an adult that's a picky eater, they're going to find a lot of these foods unpalatable. And so I was thinking about it over the past couple weeks, and I'm kind of a picky eater, I realized. And I think picky eaters, there's 2 kinds of picky eaters. There's the picky eaters that literally will not try anything new, and it doesn't matter how you dress it up. And then there are the picky eaters who they'll eat something like tuna fish, but they need crackers to go with the tuna fish. Like they need the crackers as the vehicle to get the tuna fish in. You know what I mean? Because it's only appealing to them that way. And so I say in my book, you shouldn't eat anything that has more than 5 grams of sugar per serving, or sugar shouldn't be one of the first 5 ingredients. Okay, well, if you have a child that's a picky eater or an adult that's a picky eater, maybe you just try to stick with things that is not in the first 2 ingredients. I think you just have to kind of relax the rules a little bit, and try to get them trying new foods and eating vegetables and non-starchy vegetables. And, if you have to put dark chocolate chips on a celery stick with peanut butter to get them to eat it, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. And I think it's the same thing, if you have a child with no thirst mechanism and, they will only drink something that has flavor, then use the stevia sweetened beverages, or, I would try to stay away from fruit juice and soda, obviously, and diet soda. But there's definitely wiggle room, and, whatever the most important thing is obviously going to be keeping their sodium at a normal range. So whatever they need to drink to make that happen. If they're sick and all they'll drink is fruit juice, great, let them drink fruit juice. I mean, you gotta think about what's most important.
It's an interesting point because it's, part of HO, some of the side effects, or another thing that comes along with it is hyperphagia, which is that constant starvation and hunger. So you'd think that if someone's constantly hungry, they would eat anything, but that's actually not the case, which is interesting. I just find that fascinating.
Oh yeah, it's true. I mean, my son, there's plenty of things he'll turn down.
Mm-hmm. You put a plate of pasta in front of my son and he is all in, although I am too, so I can't really fault him for it, but that's helpful to know. I think we covered most of the questions I have.
Patricia has another question.
I have fibromyalgia, and pharmacist said that starting LDN dose was too low for treating fibro. My primary is deferring to the pharmacist for directions to increase dose. Okay, good to know. I mean, I certainly think a lot of the medications that doctors prescribe to potentially treat HO are very experimental. and usually off-label uses. So a lot of times it's a little bit of trial and error to try to figure out what's working. I know oxytocin is a big one where everybody's sort of testing the waters, and there's no real hard and fast rule. I think initially it's thought the lower dose of oxytocin is more effective in the case of HO, but I've seen people doing upwards of 10, 20 units a day, so I'm not sure. I think it's up to each individual to kind of try it, see the effects, log the effects, and see the trends over time.
Yeah, and share
Yeah.
what works with the rest of us on Facebook, please.
Yes, definitely. And working with doctors that are treating patients in this space, they're very interested to know too what we find out on the front line. So sharing through social media and even the setting is really helpful because we can relay information of what people are finding effective back to treating physicians. So good stuff. Anyone else we have a few more minutes. So any questions anyone has, please send them in. Here we go. Caroline says, I don't like seeing people at school eating junk food and staying skinny. None of us do. Do you have any tips for me to deal with this? It doesn't seem fair.
Yes, that is my son's biggest complaint. And it's, nobody wants to see people eating junk food and staying skinny. But you have to kind of just have tunnel vision. I mean, you can't, I tell my son all the time, I mean, it's the same, if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you do it? It's just, and there's two issues. There's one, like, okay, it annoys me to see it. Great. There's the other issue of that makes me want to like steal their food. Or that makes me, eat more than I should be eating. And we definitely struggle with that. It's really hard. And, Caroline, I'm not sure what grade you're in or if you're in college. I know what we did with my son that helped is, I try to send him a couple pieces of dark chocolate a couple times a week to eat. We send extra non-starchy vegetables and protein. And if he sees, people eating junk food, he just has to try to distract himself or go do something else. Okay, thank you. So you're in 9th grade. In 9th grade, you probably, I don't know, you may have more freedom to be able to actually leave the cafeteria. That might be helpful. Because, it is hard, but the truth is in life, I mean, you just can't control what other people eat. And even when you are a professional, you're going to go to work and there's going to be people putting out bowls of candy, bringing in, cupcakes to celebrate a baby shower. It's just constant. So, it's just something you have, if you have to remove yourself, then go read a book, or ask a friend to go take a walk with you around the school, just something to kind of get away from the junk food. I hope that's helpful. It's a tough one.
Yeah, I think that's a tough one because at that age too, that's what's presented to you all the time. I mean, I'm hoping that the climate has changed now that people are so focused on health and whole foods and that kind of thing. But it's tough because in school, that's all, Marie says, I just cannot get my daughter to eat less. Her problem is she always wants more no matter what. She claims it's not enough. So what would you do?
So how old is your daughter, Marie?
I don't see. Marie, can you tell us how old your daughter is? You can actually use your mic too and talk if you
yeah, if I knew how old she was, it would help me, I guess, answer the question a little bit more tailored to you, because if you're talking about a 3-year-old, that's very different than if you're talking about a teenager. So if you could let me know how old she is, that would be helpful. You know, it gets tricky. I mean, you know, children go through different developmental stages. And so, you know, if you have a 3-year-old that wants to eat more and you say no, they're going to have a tantrum. And that's just the way they handle things. And it's very, very, very difficult. And, you know, distraction sort of works best. Or, you know, what I used to do is I used to give my son, when I'd serve him a plate, I would give him less than he was allowed to eat, because he would like to, he wanted me to say yes when he wanted more. So I would just give him less food. And then when he said I wanted more, then I would give him the rest of the food, but it was still an appropriate size. So, you know, that's one tactic that you can use if she's younger. If she's older, you know, what my son did is I give him as many non-starchy vegetables as he wants. And so non-starchy vegetables are going to be your crunchy vegetables. So, you know, peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, I don't know. These are the ones my son eats, so I don't really think. Broccoli, cauliflower. I would let him eat as much of that as he wanted. And if he really needed more, I would let him eat protein. What I don't let him eat more, or what I didn't let him eat more when he was younger, was carbohydrate. So if he wanted more non-starchy vegetables and more protein and more fat, you know, things like avocado, a little bit more nuts and things like that are lower in carbohydrate, you can give a little bit more. So, you know, again, if I knew how old she was, it would be a little easier to answer this question. Hopefully that's helpful.
I think too, like when you go out to dinner, which we all, I mean, it's unavoidable in life. We're all going to go out to dinner at one point or another. We take our son out to brunch every Sunday. That's his thing. And we just make sure that we box up part of his food before, you know, or we ask. Most people know us, we live in a small community, so they kind of already sort of cut his size. And then at home, we all eat about the same portion size. So we are modeling, or we try to model what is an appropriate portion size for anyone, not just him. So that's just some tricks that we have dealt with the whole wanting more. Family parties are just a battle the whole way through. Welcome to holiday season.
Yes. I try to host the parties so I can control the food. That's been my solution.
Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question, Marie. Anyone else have some questions? You can either type them in the chat window. You can
I see she did answer. She's 26. I'm so sorry. For some reason, I wasn't scrolling down. Thank you for your patience, Marie. She's 26. So, you know, my son is 13 years old now. And so I'm having to, in my mind, transition to, you know, teenage mode. And I am just letting him have more of a say about how much he wants to eat. And, you know, I think as they get older, you have to give them, you know, a little bit of room, give them enough rope to hang themselves on, so to speak. You know, if you're in a situation where you are controlling what food is being brought into the house, then you have an advantage, because she may want to eat more, but it's, you know, at least she's eating vegetables and nuts and seeds and meats, rather than eating, you know, Cheetos or crackers or anything else. But yeah, I mean, they do get mad, and, you know, it's just one of those things where I think when they get to be that age, you know, everybody's situation is different depending, I guess, on, you know, how functional everybody's children are. But, you know, you just have to let them have a little wiggle room to eat more. And again, you know, try to encourage, okay, if you're going to eat more, you're going to, you know, I would suggest eating non-starchy vegetables and protein, but it's up to you. And you just walk out of the room. I think it's the only way to not fight.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It is it's very tough.
I think too, because, you know, you're kind of watching and sort of in some way powerless, I guess, unless you can only control so much, I think, especially as they get older.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyone else have any questions? You can put them in the chat window or the QA window, or you're welcome to unmute yourself and talk. We'll keep an eye out for them, but Marci has, of course, I mentioned earlier, written the book Hungry for Solutions. That book is available to be purchased on her website, which is, tell us your website, Marci. I don't know if it's on the screen.
It's www.marciserota.com.
Mm-hmm. And you've also recently released a children's book. Tell us about that.
Yes, I have. It's an ebook. So, you know, if you have a Kindle or some sort of tablet that you read books on, sorry, I have a small child and a dog trying to get into the room, so I'm just a little distracted. You can buy it on my website and you just upload it to your Kindle. And it's actually a book that my 9-year-old son and I wrote together. And it's for small children. It's called Snack Attack, Hungry for Solutions. And it's just, you know, about the healthy foods having a war against the unhealthy foods. And it's really cute and just a good way, you know, to start a conversation about nutrition with your young children. There's also a quiz in the back and a discussion so that you can kind of see, you know, what they've learned from listening to the book. And then I also have a free worksheet that no one has taken advantage of yet. If you go to my website and you scroll down, there is a free worksheet where by doing the worksheet, you are going to learn about nutrition for hypothalamic obesity, healthy nutrition, and healthy body image. And I really had written this worksheet with teenagers in mind. So if you're a teenager, it would be great. But honestly, I mean, any age can really benefit from the information in this worksheet. I think if you're, I would say maybe 12 and older, 11 and older, I think would benefit from the worksheet. So take advantage of that. It's free and you can just download it. You'll get a PDF emailed to you and you just open the PDF and you can print out the worksheet. So yeah,
Good.
take advantage.
So any final thoughts, Marci, or, you know, any questions out there that people tend to ask you that maybe I haven't touched on that tend to be common questions?
I don't think so. I mean, you know, it's a difficult thing.
Mm-hmm.
And every new developmental stage that a person reaches, you know, it kind of changes things up and new challenges are presented. I think that, you know, the easiest way as an adult and as a young adult to stay healthy is to hang out with other people who, you know, make eating healthy a priority.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're hanging out with kids that are eating junk food all the time, it's going to be really, really difficult. So if you can, you know, make some friends or find some connections, you know, people that are just trying to eat healthy, I think that would be very helpful. And also, you know, I think it doesn't get said enough that people come in all shapes and sizes, and it's, you know, what this is really about is to try to control the hunger and to improve your quality of life. It's not about trying to get, you know, super skinny or anything like that. You know, I really encourage everybody to just accept and love your body the way it is. It's working hard for you. It's doing the best it can. And, you know, you just want to give it the tools to live the healthiest life that it can, which is, you know, eat nature-made foods that weren't made in a factory, and, you know, just making sure you're not eating more than, I'd say, at the most 30 grams of carbohydrate per meal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we definitely want to keep the avenues of information going and, you know, keep talking about this online and asking questions. Marci has a really great Facebook page. where everybody sort of helps each other out and Marci chimes in, and it's nice to be able to share information and frustrations with each other. I mean, back even 4.5 years ago when my son was first diagnosed, we really didn't have as much of these conversations as we do today. And I think it's amazing to see it evolve. That is where social media has its benefits in helping everybody kind of that's in this, kind of in this situation, help navigate it. So unless there are any more questions, we thank everybody for joining us tonight. Sorry for the delay in getting started. Yeah, this was our first webinar. The Raymond A. Wood Foundation is hoping to kind of do a monthly Meet the Experts webinar on various situations revolving around particularly pediatric brain tumor issues, but really, anyone can join us that can relate to the conditions and the experiences. So thank you all. Thank you, Marci, for your time. And don't forget, if you want more information or to get in touch with Marci, you can visit our website, marciserota.com, or you can join her Facebook page, what's the name again, Marci? I don't have it.
Hypothalamic Obesity Nutrition.
Yes. Yep. And the book is very helpful too. So thanks again, everyone. Have a good night, and keep talking about HO. Great. Good night, all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marci.